an estimated 300,000 American kids are being sold for sex in America every single year. But only 1% of those kids were ever being identified. But then we realized that if they didn't have a safe place to go and to heal once they escaped, 80% of that 1% were ending up back in traffickers' hands.
The harsh reality is that it's happening every day to kids right there in your community. These are kids that are being trafficked by a family member, by a boyfriend, by a peer at school.
I'd been exploited since I was about 13, and so a lot of the messages I received 24/7 were how disappointed people were in me, how nobody else could ever want me. I went through my first aftercare program when I was 17 years old, and it was a horrific experience. Tough love and shaming and shunning. It really compounded those beliefs I already had about myself. So when I left, it took only 3 days for me to be back with my trafficker.
So when we came into this space, we saw programs that were doing really harmful things. We trained 160 victim advocates from a federal law enforcement agency, and they said we've got hundreds of cases and hundreds more that we would like to take, but we don't take them because we don't know where to put the victims. And if that's the only thing standing in the way of law enforcement kicking down doors, more places for these survivors to heal, game on.
When I was at the Department of Justice, I oversaw a budget of $6.5 billion worth of programming to nonprofits. But of all of those organizations, there's one that stands out as really the gold standard, and that's the Safe House Project.
The Safe House Project's vision is to unite communities to eradicate trafficking in America. We want to increase the rate of victim identification through education. We want to see survivors supported in escaping their trafficking situation, and we want to provide them holistic housing and healing opportunities.
Every day, our team is receiving calls from victims of child trafficking. We watch them have 10 seconds of insane courage where they walk out that door. Our team jumps into action. They're helping them from the moment of exit until they step over that threshold into a safe house program.
I got to a point at 27 where I was able to enter into a different program, and this time it was a safe home that was specific for women who'd been trafficked, and they knew how to treat it correctly with a lot of trauma care, a lot of grace. And so we come to this place now where I had the honor of being a big part of developing our Safe House certification.
It's in a safe house program that survivors get to be surrounded with the supportive community who can tell them that they are loved.
Every day, they beat that drum louder than the original drum beat that says you're not worthy. They say you are loved, and you are beautiful, and you are precious, and you are capable.
When you're treated like that every single day, you start to believe it.
Every day I get to wake up and witness the miracles of survivors who show that post-traumatic growth is possible. And every time we see one survivor exit a life of exploitation, other people are drawn to their story.
What gives me hope is when I get a text or a call from a survivor showing me the keys to their first car, or that they've been accepted into college, when I get to see them doing things that they didn't think was possible for them.
There's no way that you can't have hope, even in the face of incredible darkness, when you can see that one light that shines. And we don't just have one light, we have thousands of lights that we have helped.
I never thought that I would have the life that I live now, and I know that this is just the beginning.
Well, joining us now are Kristi Wells and Brittany Dunn from Safe House Project. Ladies, thank you so much for being with me today to talk more about what you guys are doing.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Glad
of course.
to be here.
Well, Kristi, I wanted to start with you. You are the CEO, one of the co-founders of Safe House Project. Can you just tell us how the organization even got founded?
Yeah, so in 2017, both Brittany and I were working together with a friend to respond to an international issue around human trafficking, working to build up a safe house to protect children at risk of trafficking in South Africa. And as we began doing that, people started to say, that's great, but what are you going to do here? We didn't have a solution. We weren't looking to have a solution. Both of us were in varying areas of corporate America. Husbands were getting ready to deploy.
Wow.
But we decided to take time to become students to really understand the issue domestically. And really, once we did, we saw something that we couldn't unsee and developed some solutions to combat it. And really, God said go.
Wow.
And so we jumped in.
That's incredible. Now, did you guys know each other before all of this?
Kind of.
Okay, kind of.
We had spent some time together. We were in a Bible study that my husband and I hosted from our church, and had spent time together through that group and hung out together twice in person, or as I guess individually before we launched a national organization together.
Oh my gosh, that's a God thing. That is
really
absolutely a God thing. I love that. Well, Brittany, you are also obviously one of the co-founders and the COO of Safe House Project. You know, what is the mission and the vision of this organization, and how do you guys stand out in the fight against human trafficking?
Yeah, great question. So our mission really is to eradicate human trafficking. But to do that, we really focus on increasing survivor identification above that current 1%. We build holistic solutions to serving survivors. But really the heartbeat of our organization is our survivor support team, who served over 1,500 survivors of trafficking over the past year.
Wow.
And so really, at the end of the day, it's about bringing hope, a freedom, and a future to survivors of human trafficking.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Kristi, I also wanted to ask, you know, what are some like common misconceptions about human trafficking, sex trafficking that you encounter all the time, and how can we address them to really educate our audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes people believe that human trafficking is something that doesn't happen within our borders, or that the people it happens to are those who maybe are not U.S. citizens. People see that they might hear myths that there's indicators of human trafficking if there's zip ties on their car windshield at a parking lot. But the reality is that human trafficking happens all around us. Of the survivors that we served this last year, of 1,529, 96% of them were American citizens. And so when we understand that it's happening in our country, that it's happening to our citizens, and we can take some time to educate ourselves by taking a training at iamonwatch.org, then we can really help understand how to combat it within our communities.
And I read a stat, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of trafficking, there's a high percentage that happens within families.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we find is that about 40% of minor victims of trafficking will first be sold by a family member. Right. It is shocking.
It's like unbelievable
to
hear that. Yeah.
But at the same point, I think when we recognize that, there's vulnerabilities that we have in our community, and individuals, these families go through a lot, you can understand a little bit more about maybe why that would happen. But I think it also helps kind of widen the aperture of what we're looking for when we realize that it could be happening right next door to a child in our own community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this question goes to both of you guys. I mean, what are some of the, maybe some of the most challenging moments you guys have faced thus far just handling all of this? Is there one situation that stands out more than the rest? How were you able to like really cope with all of that? Anything come to mind for both of you?
So we did have a situation several years ago where a survivor called us in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, and her trafficker had found her and attacked her. And so we spent all that rest of that night and early into that Christmas morning helping guide her through getting to the hospital and making sure that she had the rape kits done and all of these different pieces, and swinging that pendulum back to our children and celebrating Christmas and being with them on Christmas Day. It was a lot of tension to hold between the evil of the world and the goodness of God. And so I think that's the hard thing every day is walking that tension. We don't experience things like that as much anymore. But I think that's where you always have to see the light overcomes the darkness over and over and over again. And I think that's the hope that I have in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I also wanted to ask, why are partnerships, talk about the importance of partnerships with local law enforcement, local shelters, other organizations to really eradicate human trafficking?
Yeah. So human trafficking is a very complex criminal enterprise, and that means that it cannot be solved by one person or one organization. It really requires that collective impact approach, and partnership is at the heart of that. And so we need our law enforcement officers to be doing their job and feel equipped to identify and prosecute trafficking cases. But at the same time, we need the safe homes and those who are in direct care to be able to receive these individuals and help them heal from the trauma that they've endured. And so it really becomes an issue that can be engaged by all members of our community. Everybody has a part to play, and when we all do that, this massive issue really comes into focus of how we can collectively tackle it to see eradication.
Can you guys give examples of how you've partnered with local law enforcement to, you know, again, partner to alleviate this even within our local community?
Yeah, of course. So working alongside our law enforcement partners, we do a few key things. We first work to increase that victim-centered approach to law enforcement, making sure that as they might go into a situation that they know how to properly identify a potential victim of trafficking. But through that, we also then are able to really come alongside them, and as somebody is identified, connect those individuals into our survivor support team, where then they receive that case management to make sure that they can step into a safe house program where they can heal. And so that's really the beauty of that collaboration.
I love that. And I wanted to also ask, you know, the Safe House Project, you guys ensure that survivors receive long-term care. And I think that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are the experts here, like that has been the issue for maybe some other organizations that fight against human trafficking. It's maybe short term. It doesn't help these survivors long term. I mean, there's so many things that they struggle with, and getting out of that, how are you guys able to ensure and have been able to implement things that ensure that they get the long-term care that they need?
Yeah, so our team has worked really hard over the years to develop a network of over 700 organizations that we can place survivors into, and we do a quality match. So we work to understand the individual needs of the survivor and match them with the individual expertise of the safe homes or the detox facilities, if that's what is needed, or mental health facilities. And so when we do that quality one-to-one match of needs to expertise, we see the stick and stay rate go up by 80% for them in these programs. But safe housing isn't, to your point, it's not just a roof and a bed. It is where they get education and life skills training and therapy. And it's not always reestablishing normal. For some, if they've experienced trafficking for most of their life and into their childhood, then it's establishing a norm. And so these homes do a beautiful job of really helping to help them build a life. But we're the national certification model to certify and evaluate any program providing residential services to victims of trafficking. So that really helps us ensure that we're not just placing them in a safe home, but making sure that it's a really high quality, high performing home that's going to provide all of the trauma informed care that they need.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Well, we also got to talk about SafeWatch, which is an AI platform that's helping fight against human trafficking. Can you guys talk more about that? That's amazing.
Yeah, we're very excited to be launching SafeWatch this January.
Awesome.
And to that point, it's really working to solve the issue that so many people might suspect something's happening to somebody in their community, but they don't know how to report it. They don't know if what they're seeing actually is trafficking. And so this is a mobile app that they'll be able to download to their phone and go on and interact with and determine whether or not that's trafficking. And if we validate that it is, we are sending that tip to law enforcement. So it really creates a safe and secure way for people to report suspected trafficking, equip our law enforcement with the proper identifications, and then also connect those survivors into our survivor support team, really creating a comprehensive approach.
That's incredible. And anyone can download this app on their phone. Wow,
Yep.
that's incredible. I love that you guys are utilizing that. I know it's going to be very helpful. A couple more questions. You know, what advice would you give to someone who may be watching this interview and they want to get involved in the fight against sex trafficking, human trafficking, but they just feel overwhelmed, like they don't know where to start? Maybe what's some advice that you would give them?
Yeah, great question. I think that at the beginning, it really is about educating yourself. This is a complex issue. And so the first step that we always encourage people to do is to go to iamonwatch.org. It's our survivor written training that talks about their intersection points with community members and helps empower somebody to feel part of it. And I often find that from that place, then there's usually a calling that somebody gets put on their heart, and they lean into that and they find kind of where they can serve with their time or their talent.
Yeah. Okay, very last question. If you could mobilize the world with one message about human trafficking, what would it be?
I think it's the idea that all of us have the ability to make a difference. Eradication of human trafficking is possible, but that's not a statement of what we can do as one organization. That is a rally cry for all of us to step in and do our part. And so, to Brittany's point, taking the training at iamonwatch.org is the first step, But the number one thing we want everybody else to do is go to safewatch.org and get on the list to be the first to get the SafeWatch app, because the more hands we can get that in, the more we have the ability to identify victims of human trafficking across our country.
Ladies, thank you guys so much for being with us today, and I just bless you both and all of the work that you're continuing to do. Truly, it's changing lives, and you guys are like angels on earth. I just thank you guys so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, of course. All right, everyone. Well, there are countless ways that you can make a difference in the fight against human sex trafficking. Visit safehouseproject.com to learn more about the life-changing work happening right now and discover how you can get involved today. And if you are watching and you need help, you can head to safewatch.org or call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 888-373-7888. Take a picture of that number, 888-373-7888.